Now that we've conquered the challenge, here's some bonus content to reward you for making your way through all of these videos. Let's go back to our workflow, and we will run our workflow again. And what I'd like you to notice here is that if we type in valid numbers, the workflow works great. But what if we said something like 1 million? That's a valid number to enter. However, that's not a reasonable number, at least not in this lab environment. Additionally, we could type things such as, I would like 3.14 virtual machines. In this case here, we're typing a decimal number when what we're really expecting is an integer. And in a totally bizarre example, what if we said we wanted -1 virtual machines? That doesn't make any sense at all. So the point I'm getting at here is that the way our workflow is currently designed, it does not provide any sort of data validation for the values that users are entering when they run the workflow. Now, there are a variety of ways we can tackle this issue, and I'm going to be showing you one called input forms, which we'll do in just a moment. But right before we go into the input forms, notice also that by default, the label for this piece of information that we're asking is the name of the input, which to you and me, the people who develop this workflow, we understand what this means, but this label here would probably confuse our users. So let's go fix these things by setting up a custom input form. This is the default input form. Let's go set up a custom input form. To do so, let's go back to our workflow. And in the workflow, right next to the schema tab, there's a tab labeled form. And in our form, this center area, the canvas, shows you what the input form is going to look like when the user runs this workflow. Now, the first thing that we can see here is that the label for this first piece of information we're asking is the same as the name of the input. Again, this makes sense to you and me, but this is kind of cryptic for the end user. So let's go adjust this input form by going to Appearance, Label, and let's type in a label that would make more sense to the user. So if we ask the user how many virtual machines, that will presumably make more sense to them. We could make that even longer and more descriptive if we want, but for our purposes, that's good enough. Now, the next thing that we want to deal with is the fact that this input field here is being a bit too permissive. It's allowing the user to type various pieces of information that don't make sense. This is, I have not demonstrated this to you, but this is set up to prohibit the user from entering non-numerical characters. So for example, if the user typed O-N-E, they want 1 virtual machine, it won't let them type O-N-E because those are letters. But we do have, as we've seen a few moments ago, a bit too much leeway in terms of the numbers that users can enter. So let's see how we can fix this up. Well, this picker here, this input that we have set up here is actually, let me resize things a bit here. Let's look at these generic elements. Right now, what we're using is a decimal picker. That's why the user could type things such as they want 3.14 virtual machines, which makes no sense. If we were to change that instead to an integer picker, then that will force the user to type numbers such as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. On the other hand, integer picker is not going to prohibit the user from typing values that are too large or too small. So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust this input by setting some constraints on it. Let's go click on the Constraints tab. One of the things that we can specify is whether or not that input is mandatory. Right now it says, by default, this field cannot be empty. Well, it's two negatives. What does that mean? So it cannot be, oh yeah, let me switch it to yes, and let's think about what this means. So this field cannot be empty. Okay. Yes means it's required. It's mandatory. The user has to type something. So that would be a good thing to set. But I'm more interested in these minimum and maximum values. Why don't we say that the minimum number of virtual machines that the user can deploy is 1 and the maximum is 10? That would be potentially a reasonable range of values for the user to type. Let's go ahead and save our new input form. click Save to confirm our save. And let's run the workflow again and see what happens now that we have our custom input form. So the first thing that we notice is that the custom input form has a label that makes much more sense to the user. And additionally, it has an asterisk here. The little red asterisk indicates that this value is mandatory. So we have to type in a value. So why don't we try typing in some values? The number 1 is legal. The number 10 is legal. But if we say 100, notice that the custom input form is immediately warning the user. Even if they say they want 11, that's not going to be allowed. Additionally, if the user says 0, that's not big enough. Or if they say -1 or -100, those numbers are too small. We don't want the user to be able to enter those values. So we have set up a custom input form. All right, that's a quick exploration into the types of things that you can do with custom input forms. There's a whole lot more that you can do, including things such as creating dynamic drop-down lists. If you'd like to learn more about how to do those, take a look at this video. All right, we are well into this multi-video journey. We reached the end for now, but there's lots more to learn about Orchestrator. I'd like to tell you how much I appreciate that you've stuck through all these videos. If you'd like to see more videos, make certain that you subscribe, click the notification bell, and choose to receive all notifications. And additionally, if you like these videos, let your colleagues know to go to the VVork YouTube channel.